Hello everyone, good day. This is M.A. Ido. We are looking at an African poem written by Professor Niyi Osundare, and then it is titled Not My Business. Not My Business, first of all, presents a tune of negligence. It presents a tune of indifference in the post-colonial Africa, where people appear not to feel concerned provided the issue at hand doesn't bother them primarily. Now, Not My Business is a poem made up of 26 lines and of course 8 stanzas. And then it is a narrative poem that talks about how people fail to rise up amidst injustice, feeling unconcerned until the same injustice they fail to fight is right there at their doorstep. Now, in this narrative poem, we see 4 characters. The first character is called Akani. Alright. While the speaker sits, he witnesses as a black jeep takes a Yoruba man away called Akani, and he fails to do anything because he feels it is not his business. He feels provided the yam he's eating is not taken away from him. And then, right in his presence again, a Hausa man called Danladi is picked up, an innocent man for that matter, with the same black jeep, and he feels it doesn't concern him because so far the yam he is eating is not taken away from him. And then again, he hears again that an innocent Igbo girl called Chinwe has been sacked from her place of work unjustly. And then he fails to protest, saying that, of course, the yam he's eating is not taken away from him. You can imagine the high level of negligence on the part of the speaker, failing to actually rise up against this injustice, until one day, when he also sits in front of his house, the same jeep comes in and takes him away, and it was all a long silence. That means, amidst injustice, rise up to fight. Tomorrow could be your turn. Alright? So the subject matter, therefore, what the poet is talking about is the failure to speak amidst injustice, as we witness the speaker neglecting what he is supposed to antagonize. And we talk about the setting. The setting is Africa, of course, specifically in Nigeria, because of the mentioning of Akani, Danladi, Chinwe. Then it is a post-colonial era, particularly during the time of Sani Abacha, alright, where human rights abuses were grossly witnessed. Alright, so the poet uses the poem to antagonize all of these injustices that have to do with military junta, especially during the time of Sani Abacha. In our next class, we are going to look at the various themes that we find in Not My Business. Alright, we are still looking at the poem Not My Business by Niyi Osundare. But this time around, we are looking at the themes. Themes are universal ideas explored in the literary work as deciphered or interpreted by the readers from the subject matter. As we have explored as the readers of this work, we have seen these various themes. We have theme of injustice prevalent in the poem. We have injustice against the Yoruba man, Akani. Alright, we have injustice against a Hausa man, Danladi. We have injustice against Chinwe, an Igbo girl who has been sacked from her place of work without reasons being given for such. Then, again, we have the theme of man inhumanity to man, the case of a man oppressing another man. The 3 ethnic groups in Nigeria have been captured with the use of Akani Yoruba, use of Danladi Hausa, and Chinwe Igbo to show that oppression is found in the 3 major ethnic groups in Nigeria. Alright? It's not just limited or restricted within the confine of a particular region or tribe, as it were. Then we have the issue of bad leadership also as a theme. Alright? A bad leader is a leader who doesn't rule well. If you check very well the poem, a good leader should, of course, take into consideration his actions against the masses who have voted them into power, all right, or who they are governing. But in this case, it isn't like that. Criticism isn't accepted. When you criticize, you are subject to disgrace. You are subject to inhuman treatments, all right, as we find in the case of Akani, as we find in the case of Danladi, as we find in the case of Chinwe, who have been unjustly punished for no reason at all. Then we have high level of comfort. Regardless of all of these pains, all of the predicaments that bedevil the lives of Danladi, Chinwe, and Akani, the speaker feels unconcerned with his yam that is busy eating that represents comfort. That's to show you how we are as Africans, specifically in Nigeria, all right, where if some few individuals are comfortable, they don't care anymore about the rest, as evidence in the life of the speaker. The yam he eats represents comfort on his part, provided the yam is not taken away from him. What business does he have with Danladi, Chinwe? If they like, let anything happen to them. And that's what we face in Nigeria as a country and Africa at large. Now, away from there, we are going to look at the literary devices that we find in the poem, Not My Business. Literary devices are the ingredients with which a literary work is cooked. Very much like you want to cook rice, you need your ingredients like your oil, like your seasoning. The same function that literary devices also have. Alright. In a poem, we have these devices. Mood. What is mood, first of all? Mood refers to the state of mind of a writer. It refers to the general feeling of a writer. Now, what is the mood of this writer? The mood of the writer is one of dissatisfaction. He's not satisfied with the way injustice, alright, has taken over the land and how people feel negligent about the whole issue. But first of all, we need to understand one thing. What is the difference between tune and mood? We went there, or we were not there with the writer when he was writing Not My Business. How did we now get to know that he was in a sad mood? It is because of his reaction or his attitude in his work we are studying right now. Alright, so the attitude of a writer towards the subject matter, the behavior of a writer towards the subject matter that will later dictate the mood is referred to as tune. In other words, mood comes before the tune, but through the tune or attitude we get to know the mood. So what kind of behavior or attitude is presented that makes us know that he was in a dissatisfied mood? He presents us with a tune of what? Negligence. Alright? Because our leaders are negligent towards the poverty, towards the problems of the masses. Alright, and that brings about a mood of dissatisfaction. Now, away from there, we have what they call enjambment. Enjambment, otherwise called run on line, is the continuation of a line of poetry on another for a complete sense or thoughts to be, driven. Now, away from there, now if you check the poem very well, enjambment is prevalent. Most of the lines are running from one to another. Simile, of course, simile has to do with as or like. They said that Akani or other characters are beaten up like clay and then taking away the black sheep unjustly. That's a simile, using as or like as evidence there. Rhetorical question is a question that demands no answer, otherwise called erotema or apparent interrogation in literature. As we find this question mark there, provided the yam is eaten, is not taken from his sovereign mouth, is putting a question across to everybody that is it right for him to now, stand up for against injustice, provided the yam is not taken away from him. So it's none of his business. That's why the rhetorical question is, put there and question mark indicating it. Now let's look at the refrain. Refrain is a type of repetition. What's repetition? Repetition is recurrence of words for the sake of emphasis, and refrain is a type of repetition. When words are repeated after several breaks or repeated at intervals, we have what they call refrain. What business of mine is it for me to question the arrest of Danladi, arrest of Akani, or the sack of Chinwe, alright, is repeated at intervals for the sake of emphasis. So long they don't take the yam from my savory mouth, is also repeated at intervals. Then we talk about metaphor. Metaphor is a device in which one thing is used to replace another indirectly. The yam, alright, we have there represents comfort. The yam that the speaker eats and as such does not, have any business with anybody, represents comfort on his part, that provided it's okay, he doesn't have to, antagonize the arrest of Danladi Chiwe or whoever is being, unjustly treated. Now we talk about personification. That's when personification is from the word person. What is not a person is behaving like a person. Say the belly of a waiting jeep. The belly of a waiting jeep. Jeep is not a human being, alright, that has belly to now be waiting for human, alright, so it's personified. Then the bewildered lawn. Bewildered lawn, okay, it's also a good example of personification. Then we talk about symbolism, alright. Symbolism means using one thing to represent another, alright. Waiting jeep there represents waiting disaster, waiting oppression, alright, as our leaders are waiting for us to brutalize us anytime because we have nothing to use to antagonize them like enemies. So in our next class, we are going to be looking at some other points.